Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Let me please say thank you and welcome to today's presentation from Amtrak Vacations on 5 vacations that will make you love overnight train travel. We're going to be going in depth on some great train routes, some great experiences, and some fantastic destinations, all courtesy of some of our most beloved trips on Amtrak Vacations. Before we do that, let me start at the beginning by introducing myself. My name is Andy Channel. I'm the Vice President of Product here at Amtrak Vacations and Yankee Leisure Group. Not only do my team, my department, and I create and manage these fantastic vacations that we're going to be discussing, but I've also had the chance to travel by rail, by Amtrak throughout North America and beyond, and stayed in these great hotels and experienced these train accommodations, these routes and views up close and personal. So I'm going to be also giving you the benefit of firsthand experience throughout the course of today's discussion. Just a couple of quick housekeeping items. There are some free handouts attached to today's presentation, some great references as you're beginning your trip planning. You're welcome to click on and download any of those for future use. They're yours to keep. Also, there will be a brief question and answer period at the end. So anything you'd like to know as it's coming up throughout the course of today's presentation, feel free to go ahead and jot your questions down right in there. And I'll be happy to address as many as I possibly can. And we'll be following up with you if I didn't get to somebody's question today, as we usually can't quite get to all of them. And I can see we have a huge group on today, which is very, very, very exciting. So any questions you want to hear me try to address at the end, go ahead and throw them on right in there. I may even ask all of you a couple questions along the way. So feel free to throw your answers in there as well when I toss out a question if I'm doing so. Okay, continuing on with a little bit of housekeeping, just a few important things you should know. I mentioned Yankee Leisure Group and Amtrak Vacations, and who are we, right? Who is Yankee Leisure Group? Who is Amtrak Vacations? Well, we've been in business since 1972. Back then, we opened up our first brand, Yankee Holidays. Since then, of course, we operate Amtrak Vacations, our independent rail vacations to North America, to the US and Canada, as well as Rail Bookers, our independent rail travel brand for places international. So Canada, Europe, and beyond, all independent train vacations. And we've been doing what we do for nearly 50 years now. So very proud, and we've been able to send thousands of customers to some great and unforgettable vacations all over the world. Now, I love to show this map, particularly for those of you who might be newer to this. We have, I'm sure, some veterans on there. I know we have a few folks who have already traveled with us in the past, and a couple that are going this year. But I love to show this map, particularly if you've never experienced the Amtrak network before. And the reason I love this is because all those colored lines, those are all the different long distance train routes operating by Amtrak and via rail across the border in Canada. But the Amtrak network is so extensive. It has over 500 different stations, which means we can pick you up and begin your journey wherever you're close to, whatever your hometown. We're happy to start from there. But it also shows you all the possibilities. Like, where can the train take you? Amazing destinations like national parks, some of the most beloved cities, great metropolises like Chicago and San Francisco, but also some of those smaller, really charming historical destinations, places like San Antonio, Charleston, a few others we're going to talk about today. So I love to show this because it really gives you a sense of what could be. Where could you go? Where can you go from? The beauty of it too is if you're looking at that map and saying, wow, that's a lot of different connections, 500 stops, all these different squiggly routes crossing the country. Well, the beauty of it is when you work with our team of rail and vacation experts, they make all this look easy, folks. And the fact is, the reason they make it look easy is because they've been out there. They've actually done these trips firsthand. Our team, myself included, have ridden extensively on the Amtrak network, stayed in our hotels, experienced our sightseeing. That expertise makes this look easy. Now, having done this for so long, I always think it's great to touch on what our customers tell us it is about us that makes us so special. And it usually comes down to these 6 points, and I'd like to mention them as we're getting started, particularly for those of you who are new, and thank you for joining us if that's the case. And the first is bucket list experiences. And what do we mean by that? It's great destinations, of course, places like the national parks, Yellowstone, the Grand Canyon, Yosemite, magnificent, certainly, and high on many people's bucket lists already. But it's also the train journey itself. Traveling by train is definitely an experience for someone who doesn't just want to treat getting to and from where they're going as an uncomfortable and incidental necessity. And any of us who've traveled by airplane in the past few years or any number of other ways of getting there probably realizes it can be done better and it can be done in an enjoyable way. And that's really the benefit of an Amtrak vacation is oftentimes the journey is every bit as scenic, impressive, and memorable as the destinations that you're being taken to. So train and destination, both bucket list experiences. Freedom and flexibility, and where that really comes from is every one of our train vacations is independent, meaning you have the benefit of planning, you have the benefit of our expertise, you have that consultant you're working with as you set up that next great vacation, making sure they're giving you advice, again, that firsthand experience based advice, recommendations, help guiding you based on what you've asked about and what you'd like to do. But it also means that, having that said, when you have that planning, you don't have a tour leader with you out there every minute of every day dictating where to be, when to be. No group of 30, 40 strangers. You have to kind of go along with the herd. While we do all the planning and make sure all the great pieces for your vacation are taken care of, it's at your own pace. You go to that museum at the time that's right for you. We set that dinner reservation up for you, but it's at whatever time you want to go to dinner. It may be there's a particular thing we usually include in a trip that you don't particularly like. No problem. We can swap that out for something it's more suited to your taste. So lots of flexibility when it comes to your vacation. And I do mean your vacation. You know, this next point is a good one because anybody who's flown recently will, probably say, despite the necessity for some great security measures when you fly nowadays, and I think we can all appreciate that, it is not the most enjoyable experience to have to fly somewhere, is it? I mean, think about it. If you're like me, you're getting there hours before your flight just to make sure you're not getting stuck in a line or potentially missing a flight or a connection. Baggage, I mean, when it's already actually included in your ticket, which is increasingly rare, very restrictive, lots of extra charges for anything, for every ounce over. And I mean every ounce over on weight. Even when you go through the security lines, everything, you can take this, you can't take that. I mean, we all understand the why, but it still doesn't make for a great travel experience. Amtrak, very, very, very different. I mean, most guests for Amtrak arrive 30, maybe 45 minutes before departure. Everybody boards their own separate car. It's very easy to get on, very relaxed while you're on board. There's never anything to be telling you to buckle your seatbelt in, stay put, don't move around. It's a very hassle-free environment to travel in. We're going to touch on a few more points that later on, things like baggage allowances and some things I think that really illustrate this point well. It is worth mentioning we have the official tour operator for Amtrak. So Amtrak runs a fantastic train network around the United States. At Amtrak Vacations, we are their partner that takes that transportation piece and builds a once-in-a-lifetime vacation experience around it, including not only the train, but hotels, sightseeing, dining experiences, you name it, folks. City-to-city service. When you fly anywhere, and you've probably had this experience, you tend to get off outside the city, don't you? You arrive outside, you make your way through picking up baggage and all that stuff, then you grab a cab, or maybe you're picking up a rental car, whatever it is you're doing, and then maybe it's 30, 45 minutes, an hour or beyond just to get into the destination, just to get into the destination you're trying to reach. Traveling by Amtrak is very different. In almost every case, every great destination that we offer, you're arriving to the heart of where it is you're trying to go. When it comes to city destinations, often your steps are a very short cab ride away from your hotel, your sightseeing, all the things you're there to see and do. When it comes to the national park, sometimes it's even more closer than that, where you're being delivered literally right to the place you're trying to reach. And we'll come back to that again later, but city-to-city service and the convenience that goes with arriving to the heart of the destination you're trying to explore is a big plus of booking with Amtrak Vacations. And then something for everyone. Whether it's visiting wide open spaces, very popular right now with the national parks and scenic vistas and places where the wilderness and the chance to spread out a little bit is so appealing and so beautiful. Or it's that you're that individual who loves the great modern cities and the fine dining experiences, or someone who loves a little bit of history and culture and wants to visit something on the city level, but maybe slow it down a little bit of a smaller destination. We have something for everyone. If you like food, museums, great sightseeing tours, any of those types of things, great landscapes, certainly, we definitely have a trip that will suit you. So those 6 points, I think, sum it up very well. Another thing very important to us is for letting every one of our customers, whether you're someone who already has an existing reservation or someone who's looking at a new reservation for later this year or on into 2021 or 2022, it's very important to us that we have you covered no matter what happens in the world. And our maximum flexibility offer basically allows you to go ahead and plan your next vacation with confidence, knowing that whatever happens, whether it's something in your personal life that affects your travel plans, or something changes in the world, no matter what it is, folks, as long as we know up to 5 days prior to when you're scheduled to go that you're not going to make it, you don't lose a penny. The full value of your vacation is credited towards that same trip at a different date. You can look to later this year, next year, or beyond. Heck, you can transfer the entire thing to a completely different vacation. Maybe you were going to Chicago and now you want to go visit the Grand Canyon. No problem. Absolutely no problem, folks. There are no cancellation fees, no surcharges, no penalties of any kind. The full credit will be applied to a different date or a different trip or both. We alluded very briefly early on when I was talking about the 500 plus Amtrak stations being able to make your trip go from anywhere. I want to come back to that point again because it ties into this larger idea about customizing your vacation. If you folks were to visit our website right now, our AmtrakVacations.com website, what you'd find is hundreds of different possibilities. All of these amongst the most popular and exciting ways to experience Amtrak, coming right from what our customers are telling us, what they like to do, the best ways to explore some great destinations. But here's the beauty of it. If you see one out there and it's close, but not exactly what you're thinking of, no problem. Maybe we're showing you a departure from Chicago and you live in Cleveland, Ohio. No problem. Maybe it goes the opposite direction. No problem. No matter where on the system you are, we can have that trip begin in the station closest to you. We can also customize it to include rail travel back to your station, which is very common as well. So when it comes to customization, one of the most common requests is, can I leave from my local station? The answer is absolutely yes. Whatever you see online for our suggestions, our suggested itineraries, they can absolutely be customized to suit your departure point, whether it's one way or round trip. It doesn't just end there either, too. Whether it's combining different types of trips, maybe you have, a Rails to the Grand Canyon experience, which you see there, and you want to upgrade hotels or extend the amount of time that you're going to have there. You love the canyon and you want to make sure you get 2-3 nights at the South Rim. No problem. We can upgrade your hotel. We can extend your stay. We can tack a couple different trips together. Maybe you're looking at one or two of our different vacations and you're thinking like, these would be great together, but you don't quite offer that. No problem. We can absolutely do that. In fact, it doesn't even have to be based on our suggested itineraries, those hundreds of choices that are out there. If you have something truly unique that you'd like to do, give us a call. Call that 1-800-268-7252 when we finish today's presentation and speak with one of those rail and vacation experts, and they can absolutely build you an Amtrak vacation from scratch if you have something that's truly a little bit different. Definitely endless possibilities, whether it's extending, upgrading, adding different sightseeing, you name it. Before we get to our trips, I have one final point, and that is a common question we're getting lately. Everybody wants to be very sure, of course, right? You, me, everybody, that when travel begins again in earnest, that we're traveling in a healthy and a safe environment. And I'm very proud to say that Amtrak has done a fantastic job throughout this challenging few months with not only continuing to operate, but being right on the spot and delivering a great, healthy set of changes to make sure that everybody can travel safely and feel very, very comfortable for good reason on board. So just a few things that Amtrak has done to ensure that the train is not only a fantastic and enjoyable experience, but it's a very healthy one as well. And this is that kind of the top points from that. So facial coverings are required, whether you're a staff member or a passenger. You do have to have one in stations, on trains, and in any connecting services. They have definitely stepped up cleaning, sanitizing and maintaining every aspect of the train, all equipment, every aspect of the station. They've really done a fantastic job ensuring that it is a healthy and well-cleaned environment. Including going contactless and cashless, meaning that any purchases made on board now, snacks, that sort of thing, all that is done via card. So there's no extra physical contact that comes with exchanging cash. All standards, whether it's about cleaning practices, social distancing, where to stand, how far apart, all that is clearly posted too. So when you get to the station, it's very easy to know what's expected of you and others. And on board the train, they've limited capacity to ensure that everybody has 50%. Everybody has space. There's 50% capacity, ensuring a row between all guests on board. So you have plenty of room between you and your fellow travelers. So just a few of the things that Amtrak has done, and very interesting to point out, Amtrak has continued to operate during this entire crisis, and again, done a fantastic job getting those health and safety standards up very quickly and very effectively. Okay, so enough about the details and a little bit about us. You excited to talk about some vacations by train? Yep, and I can see a few yeses out there for sure. Absolutely. So am I. That's what we're all here to do. So let's go ahead and get started with those overnight train journeys, shall we? Well, one I wanted to talk about that's proving very popular right now are our trips down to the southeast. And our Charleston and Savannah round trip from Chicago, or again from wherever you'd like to go, but we're going to talk about Chicago in this case. One of the best ways to do it and experience an overnight train journey, two in fact, if you choose to do so. So how does this go? Well, you're going to visit two great waterfront cities, but you're going to experience some classic Amtrak overnight train routes to get there. You begin with a one-night departure from Chicago, heading down to Washington, D.C. on the Capital Limited train. So some beautiful countryside, some farm country, some hills as you pass down through to Washington, D.C., through Pennsylvania and such. Absolutely wonderful scenic journey, and you travel overnight on board. So you get the chance to stay on board, whether you do it in coach, whether you book a sleeping compartment, and we're going to come back to those later in today's presentation. But no matter how you choose to travel, you get to experience the onboard, that classic train experience as you head off to your vacation. You'll arrive to Washington, D.C. and change to one other train. You're going to change to the Silver Meteor train, which will take you overnight from Washington, D.C. down to Charleston, where your journey really begins in terms of exploration. One important point in this one, too, for those of you, that's 2 nights out to get down to Charleston. For those of you who are new to this and maybe want to try a one night, important note on this great itinerary is that there is a day train that will allow you to go from D.C. to Charleston in the same day without doing another overnight on the train. And a very common way people will do that is either switch to that day train on the second leg or even stop off for a night or two in Washington, D.C., which is a great way to customize this trip and a very, very popular one. See the monuments in this great city, then continue down to Charleston, Savannah. Just wanted to throw that out there as a great example of the types of customization that is possible. So then you arrive to Charleston for a 3-night stay. I have to tell you, folks, I love Charleston. It's sort of my second hometown. I did 4 years of college down in Charleston. Absolutely love this great city. And who couldn't? It's a fascinating place. It has some of the most beautiful architecture. So much of the city has been preserved. It's if you're looking for that old South, that antebellum pre-Civil War type city with the classic mansions and architecture, that sort of thing, Charleston is definitely a place you should visit. We have a great sightseeing tour of the city included that will take you through some of the best spots, some places everybody should see, whether it's the old market or wandering down towards Rainbow Row, the row of beautiful historic homes that lines the waterfront as you head down towards the Battery, the southern tip of the Charleston Peninsula, and also brings you out to wander through South Abroad, the Mansion District of Charleston with the old stately homes, the hanging Spanish moss, very, very classic, and even does a campus visit to my alma mater, the Military College of South Carolina, the Citadel. Actually brings you out to the campus out there, which is a major feature of any visit to Charleston. So you get oriented to this great city. You have plenty of free time to explore. It has a fantastic culinary scene. Low country cuisine, as it is known, is got to be the best of comfort food just about anywhere in America, and well worth eating. So there's any number of great restaurants to explore in downtown Charleston. A great city and plenty of free time there. One other experience we include for you while you're in Charleston is a visit to historic Magnolia Plantation. So we actually get you out of Charleston, out of the city proper, and out into the low country for that classic experience, that beautiful home, and a little bit of history about plantation culture and history in South Carolina particularly. From there, you're going to continue south on a very short, quick train connection down to Savannah, Georgia, which is in many ways a great sister city to Charleston. They both have that very classic southern feel, very genteel atmosphere, stately homes and all that. But where they differ, where they're a little bit different is where Charleston is very much about beautiful architecture, historic buildings. Savannah has some of that. Savannah has more of the green spaces, these beautifully designed parks, and places to walk and wander. Really, really feels a little bit more slowed down even than Charleston does. And very beautiful, very pretty place to walk and explore. I definitely recommend a visit to the waterfront area where some of the best restaurants can be had. We include a river cruise there for you, so you actually get out on the river cruise boat and head on down the river, explore the city from the waterfront, which is fantastic. The other thing included with this package I think is great to give you a real feel for what Savannah is all about is the hop on, hop off sightseeing tour, where you get a great orientation of the city, a lot of history and background on its formation down on the Georgia coast, but it also gives you the flexibility to hop out and explore different spots you want to visit. So if you see an amazing park or a great place to grab some food, or you just want to wander through some old homes and some neighborhoods, whatever captures your imagination, you hop out, you go explore, you get back on the next one as you go. After visiting Charleston for 3 nights and Savannah for 2, you're going to reboard the train, heading overnight back to Washington, D.C., and then again back on to Chicago or points beyond, depending on where we have you coming from. So a great way to experience overnight travel in what are right now 2 interesting trending cities with a lot of history, a lot of culture and atmosphere right down on the Atlantic coast, and some beautiful weather as well. Charleston, Savannah round trip from Chicago, definitely one of our best train vacations. Now, I mentioned open spaces before, and I have to say every single year, it's always a toss-up between 1 or 2 destinations of which is going to be the single most popular place to visit when people come to us for an Amtrak vacation. It's always between Grand Canyon and Glacier National Park. If you're thinking breathtaking mountainous scenery, if you're thinking wildlife, untapped wilderness, Glacier National Park is the place you should look at for your vacation later this year or into the next couple as we go forward. It also features a wonderful train journey. It departs out overnight from Seattle, doing a round trip journey out to Glacier National Park. But I will say Glacier is visited from all points of the compass when it comes to the Amtrak system. So again, Seattle, a great place to start from. You can start from anywhere in that Amtrak system you want, folks. In this case, if you do come out of Seattle, you're going to be in with a one-night journey east on the Empire Builder, which is going to travel up through the Cascade Mountains, that northern stretch of the American Rockies. And what a beautiful journey it is. You sleep on board the train, wake up, watch the sunrise over the mountains, over those white-capped peaks, and out over these sprawling forests. And then you arrive that next morning to Glacier National Park, to Glacier Park Lodge, this historic hotel that actually, interesting enough, was built originally in its heyday as a railroad hotel to support this route as it was being laid out a century ago. Beautiful historic building, lots of woodwork, really lets you know it really feels exactly like you'd expect a national park hotel to feel. We have included dining there. They have a great, huge dining room. You can experience some local food. We also, of course, get you deep into the heart of Glacier National Park with a chance to explore all corners and all aspects of this amazing landscape. And I have to tell you, folks, what I talk about national parks and have for many, many years with customers. And I will tell you, it's always very, very hard to find an image that really does some of these views justice. This one, I think, does a pretty good one, though, of giving you a sense of what's possible when it comes to Glacier. Whether it's, again, those great evergreen forests, whether it's sprawling meadows, the snow-capped peaks, the jagged rock formations, the emerald green lakes, and of course the wildlife that every one of us, I think, wants to see when we visit a beautiful outdoor space like this. Glacier really has it all. We have an included sightseeing tour as well to make sure you miss nothing, absolutely nothing. They pick you up and they really give you a sample and a full exploration of everything Glacier has to offer. You start off by going through High Maria's Pass, and descending down to Lake McDonald, which is a beautiful historic hotel. You stop there. There's an optional lunch you can do. There's a huge expanse of forest all in and around Lake McDonald that you're going to tour through. You're going to visit the place called Goat Lick, which is one of the best places for wildlife viewing anywhere within the parks. You stop there, try to spot some wildlife, deer, elk, you name it. Hopefully, if you're very lucky, bears. Usually that's the thing everybody asks me, like, hey, where do I go to see the bears? Glacier, definitely one of the best places to do that, and they include some stops for that. There's also a chance to travel what is probably, as the day winds down, but it's probably the crown jewel of any visit through Glacier National Park, and that is the ride along Going to the Sun Road, which if you've never seen a photo or heard what this is, Going to the Sun Road is this. It's roughly southwest to northeast road that winds its way towards St. Mary's Valley in the northeast section of the park, but it runs and hugs along the edge of cliffs and mountains, and really it's a part of the landscape that really gives you unparalleled views of other mountain peaks, other ranges within the park, the valleys below. You really feel like you're a part of the mountain as you wind your way along this cliff's edge and mountainside road heading up towards St. Mary's Valley and then back on down towards the Glacier Park Lodge. So really thorough chance to explore this once in a lifetime visit to a national park, Glacier National Park. After you've had your chance for 3 nights, the chance to explore the park, to dine, to spot wildlife, to see some views you're absolutely never going to forget. And incidentally, make sure you bring your camera and keep it fully charged or powered up because you're going to take more photos here than you probably have ever taken on any other trip. It's hard not to point your camera in any direction and find a photo moment you want to capture. But definitely one of my favorite vacations. You'll spend the 3 nights, head on back to Seattle overnight on the train, or beyond, depending on where your starting point is. So that's Glacier National Park getaway round trip from Seattle. Fantastic 3-night stay in one of our best national parks. Amazing sightseeing. And folks, if you're looking for that overnight train journey, this is definitely a great one to do. Now, for those who are thinking overnight train journeys and really love the idea of smaller historic cities, places like Charleston and Savannah, another great option featuring overnight train travel in 2 historic smaller cities is Riverwalk to the French Quarter. In this case, round trip from Chicago, which features an overnight train journey southwest on the Texas Eagle, passing through the hills of Missouri. You head on overnight and eventually on into Texas, arriving at historic San Antonio. San Antonio is a great city. You certainly have all the modern amenities in terms of great restaurants and hotels and all the things you'd want in any major destination, but it's still got that small town feel, folks, and it's loaded with history. And the Alamo is really just the beginning of that. Of course, you have the Alamo visit. You can stop there. You can learn all about the Texas fight for independence, and feel this ambiance that goes with this destination. But you can wander the Riverwalk as well. This sort of lazy, winding set of shops and restaurants as the river makes its way right through the heart of San Antonio. If you love history, after visiting the Alamo, we can also get you out to the missions, like Mission Concepcion or some of these historic Spanish mission churches outside of San Antonio proper, in and around the San Antonio area. Beautiful history, loaded right throughout this destination. You got to spend a few nights before boarding the Sunset Limited train, which runs from San Antonio east for you on over to New Orleans. Now, this train actually, if you took it its full length, it runs from Los Angeles in the far west to New Orleans in its easternmost extremity, and vice versa. The stretch you're traveling on between San Antonio and New Orleans, I particularly love. And here's why, folks. You definitely get those sort of rolling hills of East Texas, and then they give way to swamps, green pools, Spanish moss. You definitely know you're in the bayou as you approach New Orleans coming in from this direction on the Sunset Limited. Beautiful, beautiful train journey. Not incidentally, of the 3 train trips on this one, this is not an overnight journey, but still very scenic nonetheless. Then you're going to spend a few nights exploring New Orleans. New Orleans is one of those destinations I think everybody can appreciate the charm and the appeal of why you'd want to visit this great city. And even now this year with travel a little bit challenging, still so much interest in visiting this great city. And why not, right? It's the amazing architecture, the amazing history of this place, whether it's the French Quarter or the Garden District or the historic graves and tomb areas of the city. It's a beautiful, beautiful destination. Food, wow, right? If you're like me, great food is a part of every vacation. That's part of the reason we travel. We eat too well and we see lots of beautiful things, right? But all kidding aside, New Orleans, the Creole cuisine, and that where it intersects with Southern food, lots of great, good food experiences in and around New Orleans to be had, and live music. And when I say live music, I mean it's live all the time, wherever you go. Some great musical clubs, if you're into jazz or more traditional forms of music or blues or what have you, those clubs are everywhere, but there are performers literally all in and about the city. It's one of the most musical places I have ever been in my entire life. So fantastic destination, New Orleans. You spend 3 nights exploring there. Then you return on back to Chicago on your second overnight train journey. This one, similar to when you came in on the Sunset Limited, begins with a little bit of bayou, and then opens up in some beautiful sprawling farmland, some of the most green countryside I've ever seen as you pass through Mississippi, continuing on north and up into Chicago on a very famous train known as the City of New Orleans. For those of you who know why, I'll ask you a quick question, a little piece of trivia. Does anybody know, this train was actually made famous a number of years ago in a great song. Can anybody actually tell me who the artist was who recorded the song known as City of New Orleans, which is actually about this train? If you do know, and you music lovers out there, I'm sure, okay, I see a couple people coming in. For those of you who know, go ahead and throw your answers on in there. I see a few that are correct. I see a couple that are not. So let me break it up for you. Willie Nelson, no, sorry, Karen, it's not Willie Nelson. I see a few who got it right. Okay, let me take away your suspense. So Arlo Guthrie, and you probably can hear the song in your head now that I'm saying Arlo Guthrie, yeah. So yes, made very famous by Arlo Guthrie a number of years ago. He wrote a song specifically about the City of New Orleans train, which you would be taking north from New Orleans if you took this vacation. Let's come back to national parks for a moment. We talked about some great cities in Charleston, Savannah, in New Orleans and San Antonio that are all proving very interesting this year for our guests, very popular every year, but particularly standing out right now. But another set of national parks I wanted to mention, because I think for this year, not only are they very popular, I think they have a great message, and that is our Grand National Parks of the Southwest. Now, let me begin at the beginning with this one. If you take it as it normally stands, you depart from Chicago overnight on what is, and many people would argue, one of the top 2 or 3 most scenic journeys in North America. I will tell you it is my personal favorite, and that is the California Zephyr train. If you were to travel this train end to end from Chicago all the way to San Francisco on the West Coast or out to the Bay Area, you would see literally every type of scenery in North America. I mean, every type of scenery you could be looking for. And the stretch that this particular vacation travels on between Chicago and Grand Junction is, in my opinion, the best stretch of that entire train. And here's why, folks. You depart from Chicago and you begin with sort of big sky country, the farmland, waving green fields, wide open spaces. And that afternoon gives way to night. You have your sleeping on board experience. You dine on the train, you sleep either in coach or in one of the sleeping compartments, which again, we'll go into detail on those in just a little bit. As you wake up the next morning, you're passing Denver and heading on straight up into the Rocky Mountains, the Colorado Rockies. And this is, one of the things I really love about the train too, folks, is that there are some places you would never, ever see except by train. The train is the only real way to reach them. And parts of the Rockies are just that. You come through these amazing train tunnels and pop out with snow-capped peaks all around you, big soaring mountain tops, beautiful, beautiful countryside. You travel through a huge stretch of the Colorado Rockies as the train continues west towards Grand Junction. And as the mountains start to descend and you head down towards Grand Junction, the mountains give way to this canyon country in western Colorado, these amazing river valleys and rock formations, really, really beautiful, with the train sort of hugging every curve and taking you right through as if you're a part of this landscape. And the best part of it all is you have the best viewing window possible. You're sitting in the most comfortable seat, great views, maybe a camera in hand taking photos, maybe a glass of wine, just relaxing on board. And the scenery is brought straight to you right outside that picture window. Doesn't get any easier or more beautiful, folks. So later that day, the train that afternoon will arrive to Grand Junction, where you're going to spend one night. It's really just your base for jumping out to the national parks. One of the things I love is that this vacation gives every one of our guests the chance to explore 5 national parks in a very short span of time. So what are the national parks you're going to visit? Well, Arches and Canyonlands are 2 that should be, if they're not on your bucket list yet, they should be on everybody's bucket list, folks. Whether it's Arches with its amazing wind-carved rock formations, or Canyonlands with its numerous gullies and gulches and canyons formed over the centuries, both are spectacular national parks. Zion National Park. Again, hard to capture it in a photo, but if that doesn't impress you, that view right there, I don't know what will, folks. That is Zion National Park. Amazing canyons, amazing rock formations, such a study in color contrast too, with these really green and verdant valleys and lower areas, beautiful waterways, absolutely spectacular. And it's funny, it's so close to the Grand Canyon, which is so well known, and I feel like people these last few years have really become aware of how beautiful Zion is. So that's also featured on this vacation, as well as the amazing rock formations to be viewed at Bryce Canyon National Park and Capitol Reef National Park with its natural bridges. So here's one of the things I most love about this vacation too, folks. You have that overnight train journey in the California Zephyr, right? Which I explained. Definitely in competition for the top 3, my personal favorite anywhere in North America. You have these amazing 5 national parks, each with something a little bit different to offer, but equally majestic in terms of the views and the vistas they provide you. The other thing is, and this is why I said right now this is such an interesting trip, is this is a truly private sightseeing tour experience. From the moment you get off the train to the next morning when your driver guide picks you up, it's a trip just for you and who you brought with you, meaning that expert guide is taking you to each and every one of these national parks with just you and you alone, no other travelers. You're also going to get the benefit of, when you said independent travel and flexibility. Hey, if you get to Zion and you really love Zion and want to spend more time at a particular spot because it really connects with you, you can do that. If you've done a little research beforehand and there's a couple things you really want to see, well, you let your driver know. They're very flexible in making sure everyone has the exact experience that they want to have, not just something somebody else carved out for you in terms of itinerary. So a truly private and a truly personalized sightseeing experience through 5 unforgettable national parks. After you visit the parks, they return you back to Grand Junction, and you take the California Zephyr back home to Chicago, or again, wherever your travels take you next. Definitely one to watch this year. Now, Northern Rail Experience is every single year one of our most popular trips. For those who are most excited about the overnight rail aspect of it, this gives you maximum exposure to that on 3 lines you're not going to want to miss. So let me talk to you a little bit about how this vacation works, folks. You depart from Chicago on the Empire Builder train, which we spoke a little bit about before when we talked about Glacier. This gives you it from one end to the other. So your first night, you head out from Chicago in the afternoon, you travel up through the Lakes country as you do Wisconsin and Minnesota, on and through the Badlands. The next morning, you're traveling across Montana into the foothills of the Rockies and spend the day traveling through those foothills and up into the mountain peaks as you pass Glacier and continue on the Empire Builder. You pass through the Cascades and then on down to that beautiful Pacific Northwest countryside as you reach Seattle for a one-night stay. You get pretty much a full day in Seattle. You arrive first thing in the morning. You get off. We have some sightseeing included there so you can explore all that Seattle has to offer. You can get off at Pioneer Square. You can visit Pike's Place and watch them toss the fish. If you've ever seen that before, it's a popular thing to do. You can explore the waterfront. You can head up to the top of the Space Needle. We include a few things to make your sightseeing experience very easy. And of course, we can customize any number of things to do there or extend your time. If one night's not enough and you want to spend a little more time in this great city. After exploring Seattle, you're going to continue on your next overnight train journey, which features a train we haven't discussed previously, and that is the Coast Starlight. This train runs from the top to the bottom, pretty much of the West Coast, from Seattle down to Los Angeles and vice versa. For Northern Rail experience, you're traveling that northernmost half of the Coast Starlight, whereas in the south, it follows the foothills and the ocean. In the north, it passes its way through all of that amazing Pacific Northwest countryside. Lots of evergreen trees and redwoods, beautiful hills and mountains, rocky rivers, you name it, folks. Really, really pretty countryside. And the Coast Starlight takes you right down through the heart of it as you make your way down through Northern California and on into San Francisco for a couple of nights. We have some included sightseeing here for you as well, folks. You not only get a sightseeing tour of the city itself to get you oriented, to teach you about Union Square and Fisherman's Wharf and all the history of the city by the bay, but we also get you on a journey out to the outside of the city where you're going to experience Muir Woods and Sausalito. So giant towering redwoods and a little bit of the coast of California. Definitely worth enjoying. We've spoken to you about customization. This is another good place to talk about it because San Francisco is one of those destinations where I find so many of our guests are upgrading their stay. They're adding an extra night, even an extra 2 nights to do some more sightseeing and visits. Maybe you want to get a national park in on this trip, and we do. Thousands of customers do take the trip we have out to Yosemite for the day from San Francisco every single year. If you're looking a little bit more for the culinary experience, Napa and Sonoma are not very far away. We can absolutely get you out there on a day trip to visit some vineyards, to sample some wines, and to enjoy the finer things in life while you're visiting San Francisco. So normally a 2-night stay with those tours I mentioned in Muir Woods and Sausalito. But again, great destination to really put your spin on this and adjust and customize a trip to your taste. From San Francisco, you're going to board my favorite train, the California Zephyr, and head on east back to Chicago. And in this stretch, folks, you're doing the entire length of it. So when I mentioned every type of scenery, you're going to see it on this trip, folks. You're going to head out from San Francisco. You're going to pass up into the foothills of the Sierra Nevada mountains with the orange groves giving way to snowy passes as you make your way through the mountains. Make your way down the opposite slope into the deserts of Nevada, across Nevada and Utah, through that canyon country of western Colorado and the Rocky Mountains, and out across the plains into Chicago. So literally, again, a slice of every type of scenery you can think of as you travel the California Zephyr all the way back to Chicago. And definitely a fantastic way to experience 3 overnight train journeys and a pair of great destinations along the way. Now, we didn't get a chance, and we're not going to have, unfortunately, an opportunity to cover every single train today, but I've been able to share with you some of the most popular, both year after year, but also really for this year, what we're seeing for people traveling in the second half of 2020 and beyond. We've touched on a few of those train journeys and some of the destinations that we're getting a lot of interest in for this year as well. One other train that's worth mentioning is one that's a great way to bring a little bit of yourself on your vacation with you, and that's the auto train. So for those who are looking to head south, maybe you're interested more in beaches in terms of Miami and some of our vacations down that way. One other great train route that's intensely popular is the auto train. It's the only one of its kind in the US. And this train actually allows you to board your own vehicle, either just outside of DC and arrive to the Orlando, Florida area, or vice versa. You can travel from the Orlando area up to Washington, DC and bring your car, your motorcycle actually with you on board the train. And they have some great amenities. All your meals are included while you're on board. They have upgraded classes. You can book into a private room on board the train. But the beauty is you can pack everything in your car, get to the next destination and roll your vehicle off and continue wherever else we have booked on your vacation. So very popular. I wanted to mention that one. We won't get to all trains today. That's one more I wanted to make sure we spoke about. One other thing, we talked about customization. We talked about how you can lengthen a trip and enhance sightseeing, combine destinations, and really make all these little adjustments to make for a perfect vacation. One thing we didn't spend a lot of time on, but I do want to visit because it's a very common question is, what kind of hotel options do you have? I see some things on your site. You mentioned customization and things I can do. Well, what are my options? Well, I'm very proud to say we have a very wide range of selections featuring 3, 4, and 5-star hotels throughout our destinations. So, depending on whether you're looking for something more economical, whether you're looking for the finest hotels possible, or anything in between, we have a huge selection to suit your needs. And it doesn't have to be all one or the other. We can mix and match folks with your destinations. Maybe you're spending your honeymoon or anniversary in New Orleans and you want that hotel to be top notch and you really want to be a little more economical elsewhere. No problem. We can make it whatever you need it to be. I want to come back to some points we've spoken about along the way in terms of why we take the train. Um, so let me start with a few of the points that I think are really, really valuable, things that are, I think, worth mentioning. One, the views. And I spoke about how there's certain places you really could not experience unless you were going there by train. And I think that can't be overlooked. The chance to sit in comfort and be taken to some of the most amazing landscapes, some of the most beautiful views in North America, effortlessly and in comfort, cannot be overlooked. That's a big part of it. The chance to sleep on board, to travel in this mode of transportation that sort of harkens back to the golden age of rail travel, to a more classic way of journeying across America, I think is a big part of it. But there's more than that. There's a lot more than that. I mentioned city to city service and how how usually the train gets you off in the heart of destinations and sometimes takes you right to where you want to be. Well, I love this shot, folks. That view, that hotel right there, that's the Glacier Park Lodge up in Glacier National Park, which we discussed early in today's presentation. Where you're standing, where that photo was shot from, is the train platform where the train gets off. That is literally 209 steps, folks, from where you disembark the train to the front entrance of this historic lodge where you're going to be staying. When you get off the train, the bellman come, they take your luggage and whisk it right over to the hotel. You walk up the lawn, you enjoy the mountain views and the fresh air, and you really get to settle into this great national park because we delivered you right to where you want to go. And that's such a common experience. The Grand Canyon and several other places are very much like that. So extremely convenient. Another great reason to take the train. We also spoke about hassle-free experiences earlier, one that we didn't get to spend a lot of time on, but I wanted to come back to because additional charge for this. I think they also go to the heart of that overnight experience on board the train and why we do take it, why it is such a great part of these vacations. The first and the single most commonly used is the coach accommodation, which you see featured there in that image. And I love this picture, folks, because it really gives you an impression of how roomy exactly a coach seat is. I think I mentioned earlier that I've had the chance to do overnight train journeys in all 3 of the types of accommodations we're going to see today. Coach, right on up through 2 different classes of private room on board. I will tell you, they were all comfortable, all relaxing. I slept very well in each and every one of them. This view gives you a sense, although nowadays with the spacing on rows, this gentleman would not have someone behind or in front of him because of social distancing and spacing guidelines on board. Uh, the other thing I wanted to mention, great viewing window. If you're going to relax in the comfort of your seat, you're certainly not going to miss out on any scenery. Those seats are big, aren't they? They're really more like business class on an airline in terms of how roomy they are. They recline back to 45 degrees. You get a sense of how much room this gentleman has in front of him. Really, he can kick up his legs and stretch out and be comfortable. Another important point, does anybody see a middle seat on there? I don't think you will. There is no middle seat on Amtrak coach seating, meaning you're always a window or an aisle. That gives you plenty of room, plenty of elbow room, comfort, great views, of course, out the window. The other thing is you're certainly not confined to your seat. You have the flexibility to roam the train, folks. If you want to get up, change to another open seat, another section of the car, do it. If the views switch from one side to the other and you want to enjoy something on the other side of the train, go right ahead. There's no assignment. You're not required to sit in any particular number. You can take any open seat you like. You also have the flexibility to head on down to the observation cars. There's dome cars on many of these long distance trains. You can head on down there with a camera, with a good book, just relax and enjoy the scenery and enjoy the views. You can head on down to the lounge if you want to hang out, and if you do want to socialize with some fellow travelers, or grab a glass of wine or a snack in the snack car and head on back to your seat or just hang out there at a table. So you have a lot of flexibility and a lot of freedom when it comes to traveling in coach, and certainly a great degree of comfort. Now, while most people will still travel in coach accommodations, many of our overnight travelers, understandably, are very interested in upgrading to a private room, to a private accommodation on board Amtrak. And this is the first level. The roomette is the first level of private room of the two that we're going to look at today. During the day, it is two seats, very comfortable seats. You can see one of those there, two seats facing each other. The roomette also has some extra space. You have a place to a small closet to hang some things up. Great viewing window, as you can see there. A little fold-out table, plug-in and charger stations. You can charge up devices or anything electrical you need to power up while you're there. The other things with the roomette, you actually have access to the private but shared bathroom and shower facilities that are in the sleeping car specifically for the use of the Amtrak roomette passengers alone. So only the people in your car in roomettes have the use of those. They're maintained by the car attendant, the sleeping car attendant, who's there to maintain those in pristine condition and to assist you with your needs on board, including making the upper and lower beds up for the night when it comes time to fall asleep on the train. The other thing, too, that's great about the roomette, all meals are actually included as in the price of your ticket, meaning that while you're on board the train, any breakfast, lunch, or dinner that takes place, if you're a Met passenger, the cost of that is included for you. You go ahead and select what you want from the menu. But I'll come back to dining in just a minute. I wanted to, before we wrap up on the roomette, I wanted to show you just a couple more shots of really how relaxing this can be, because it is truly a private space. And just like coach passengers, you can get up, you can head on down to those same common areas of the train for observation areas and that sort of thing. But when you want to separate from everything, when you want to relax in your own private space, maybe close the door and draw the blinds and have a little bit of privacy and just enjoy the views and the experience of being on board. You can certainly do that very easily in a roomette. Another thing with all sleeping car passengers that's worth mentioning is Amtrak does a fantastic job now of making sure everybody boards separately. Coach passengers do not actually have access to the sleeping cars, so they actually board everybody in their own sections. So there's a lot of spacing and spreading people out. It's very easy to board, but also very personal and very, again, spaced out. And right now with social distancing and that sort of thing, makes for a very easy and relaxed experience getting on board, knowing that that's the case. Now, the other type of upgraded room that we're going to look at today, the next most common, is the bedroom, or sometimes it's referred to as the deluxe bedroom. In many respects, it's just like the roomette. It's very much like that, with two seats for two during the day. Each of these rooms, by the way, handles up to two passengers, so you can book them by yourself, or you can book them with a fellow traveler. There's never another person berth with you, if you're wondering. You have the fold-out table, you have the great viewing window, you have a little storage area for some of your carry-on items. You also have the services of the car attendant who will make up the bed, the upper and lower bed for sleeping. Meals are included, just like on the roomette. The big difference primarily between the bedroom and the roomette is that where the roomette passengers have that shared but private shower and bathroom facility, that full-size one in the car for their use, the bedroom passengers have a small private and bathroom and shower facility in their actual room. It's just for their use alone. So that's really the primary difference between the two. But just as much privacy, just as much comfort wherever it takes you. I touched on dining. So one thing that Amtrak's done for some time, but I think it's worth mentioning right now, is it's a great option if we're concerned about social distancing and want a little extra space on board, is while you can take your meals in the dining car, in that classic dining car, and they are cleaning and socially distancing there, if you'd rather have your meals in the privacy of your car, those meals that are included with your ticket for roomette and bedroom passengers, you certainly can. The car attendants will not only take your order for you when dinner time comes around, they'll actually make sure to deliver the meals to your sleeping compartment if you prefer to eat there. So a lot of flexibility when it comes to where you eat on board. And while we're on the subject of food, you heard me say earlier how amazing great food is in certain destinations. Well, on the train, I think you're going to be blown away, because if you're thinking airline food and that's what you can expect when you're on Amtrak, think again, folks, it is very different. Whether you're having a steak dinner at night, or if you're like me, I'm a big fan of breakfast. I love a good omelet when I'm on vacation, something really hearty. You can do that too. Everything on board is chef prepared and absolutely delicious, whether you take it in the dining car or have it delivered to your room. More like a rolling restaurant on the tracks than anything you'll have seen on an airplane, that's for sure. So in just a couple minutes, I'm going to go to some of the questions, and thank you. I can see so many people out there throwing in some great questions for me. I'm going to get to as many of those as I can today. But I did want to come back really quickly to a couple important points. And I did want to remind you that as you're thinking about vacations for this year, hopefully I've inspired you with some of the great train journeys and destinations we're going to be able to look at today. Regardless, if you're one of our guests on today's presentation and you already have an existing reservation and you're thinking about something different or something else for later this year, or whether you're somebody planning a trip right now and you're looking at a new reservation with us, regardless of what happens, the full value of your trip is protected. Again, as long as we know by 5 days prior, our maximum flexibility offer ensures you don't lose a penny. The full credit is applied to that new date you need to switch to or an entirely new trip. When you speak to our team of experts too, when you call in that 1-800-268-7252 and you speak to one of our rail and vacation consultants to help you plan your vacation, be sure to let them know if you qualify, because we have a number of everyday discounts. Children under 12, seniors 65 and older, active duty military and personnel and their families. Every one of those is eligible for certain discounts in the rail portion of your vacation. So be sure your consultant goes over that with you and you mention any you think you may qualify for. And whether you saw something today that absolutely inspired you, whether some of the destinations we looked at did inspire you, or whether you're still looking for great ideas, what I would encourage you to do is definitely visit us at amtrakvacations.com. As I said, what we saw today was just a slice, just a sampling of the possibilities. And we have hundreds of trips online that I think will definitely impress you. And if we need to go ahead and make some adjustments to one of those to make it a perfect fit for your taste, for your special trip, no problem. Just give a call to our team and they'll be happy to make those little tweaks, those little modifications, and offer you the benefit of their firsthand knowledge and expertise in ensuring a great trip. We do have one special treat for everyone who attended today. When you call in, when you plan that vacation, if it is for an overnight train journey, one of the ones we saw today, or any overnight train journey that's featured in your vacation, make sure you give them this code. And I would jot it down if you have a chance. It's upgrade 100. Give that to the expert you're working with. They will make sure that if you upgrade to a roomette or a bedroom on board the train or any sleeping accommodation, you get a $100 discount off as a thank you for taking the time to learn a little bit more today with me and with Amtrak Vacations. Also, if you found my presentation today informative, educational, inspirational, hopefully a little fun, and I hope you did, we have another series coming up in the beginning of June on some great topics. A little bit more deep dive on June 2nd and 4th on the benefits of private sleeping accommodations. They're going to go even further in depth on that topic. June 5th on some trending and popular quick getaways. So we saw a number of different trips of length. If you're thinking a short trip, something a little quick, weekend or otherwise getaway, June 5th is going to cover that. And then June 9th and 11th, we're seeing so many people who are looking to do North America from one coast to the other, east or west. We're going to have a whole segment on that on June 9th and 11th. So if that's something you're interested in, please do register. We'd love to have you on board. Also, before we get to one question I have for you and your questions for me, don't forget, if you want to go ahead and download one of those references attached to today's presentation, go ahead and do so. You can click through and download right there. We will also be sending each and every one of you a recording of today's presentations. You'll also have that to refer back to as well. And I can see a number of questions that are popping into the box. If you haven't started sending your questions through now, folks, now is the time to do it. I'm going to go ahead and answer as many as I possibly can. So before I do so, I do have one question for you, and feel free to use that little box to go ahead and tell me your answer. I'd like to know, what rail vacation interests you? And when are you thinking of going? Did I inspire and excite you today with some of the trips, some of the routes, some of the great cities and national parks we saw today? Maybe you're thinking Zion National Park. Maybe you're thinking Charleston. Maybe you're thinking something else entirely and really just learned a lot about overnight train travel, but are thinking a completely different destination. Feel free to share. I love to travel. If you're anything like me, the more you're forced not to do it, the more you're dreaming and planning for that next great vacation. So I'd love to hear from everybody. It really inspires me to see what you're thinking about and how excited you are about that next great vacation for yourselves and for any family traveling with you. The other thing I wanted to mention, folks, is while we've been limited and we're all excited to begin traveling again in the very near future and get back to our great and memorable family vacations and such, we want to let you know that wherever you are, when you're ready to book, we're ready for you. If it's just with questions, if it's to give you ideas, if it's to help you lock in your next great journey, give us a call. You can reach us at 1-800-268-7252. I can tell you, you can reach us very quick. Our average hold time is about 3 seconds. So we're standing by. We're here to answer your questions and really support you as you plan another unforgettable journey. So without any further ado, let us get to some questions. Thank you for sharing. I see a number of great destinations from everybody on here about where they want to go. Zion National Park popped up a couple of times. I definitely see more than a few Charlestons out there. National parks in general, I see commenting on. Thank you, Cindy. Okay, great. So huge range of options. Glacier National Park. Yep. Yep, Tom, I agree with you. Definitely. Okay. Thank you so much, folks. Very inspiring, and glad we covered a number of these in our presentation today. But let's get to your questions. Let me see. And we have a number of people on here today, so I'm going to, again, try to get you as many as I can. If I don't reach your question today, folks, I apologize. I will make sure we follow up with you to get that question answered. So let's take a look out there. Okay, so I see a question out there from Parker, who's interested in sleeping options for seniors who cannot climb into an upper bunk. So this is, and there's a related question I see from a couple others out there, Parker, about lower beds. Are there any compartments with 2 lower beds? Which I'm sure is going to that same inquiry. So let me answer that one for you. So all the rooms on board the train that we discussed today feature an upper and a lower bed. Even things like the accessible room on Amtrak is an upper and lower bed. The only room on any of these trains that actually features 2 beds in the same compartment on the same level is something called a family room, but that's not really for most travelers. And the reason why is it's an upper and lower twin size bed, or about twin size bed for adults, and then an upper and lower child's bed, which is for a very small child. So the 2 lower beds are not the same size. One is a child bed and one's an adult. The way you would generally do that, Parker, is if you wanted to get 2 people on the same level, you can do 2 things, and I see this all the time. Either people will book a pair of roomettes, so either adjacent to each other or across the hall from each other, so each can have a lower bed to themselves, or the deluxe bedroom that we saw, and our team can help with what I'm about to tell you now. The deluxe bedroom, if you get the right compartment numbers, and our team knows how to do that, you can actually have them joined together and the wall between them taken out to form a compartment with 4 beds, 2 upper and 2 lower, all adult beds, either for 2 to 4 people. So that's the other way you could do it. So there's not a single room that has 2 or lower beds, Parker, but you can get configurations that will help you and your fellow travelers get a pair of lower beds throughout your journey. So very common question, and thank you very much for asking it. Let me take a look. Oh, good question from Sean. Are there fall foliage trips? Absolutely, Sean. We certainly do. Fall foliage trips throughout New England, even up across the border, in some cases into Canada at different points of the year. So yes, absolutely. Our New England Fall Foliage Rail Journey, which we didn't feature today, visits a number of great places for fall foliage. So definitely one for you to check out online or with our team if you want to give us a call. Okay, so let's take a look at some more questions. You guys have done a great job. There's so many out here. Let me see. Okay, let me find a really good one. So I have a question from Deborah and Robert, who would like to know, is Glacier National Park going to be open for this summer? Yes. So very common question. So we've been really excited because, not only is there a lot of interest in the national parks and open spaces from travelers such as yourselves for this year, but we're also seeing is that the national parks, these initial tests they've done, Rocky Mountain National Park, Yellowstone, Grand Canyon, have been doing some limited test openings, and so far have gone fantastic. So they very much do expect to be open for summer this year. Glacier from July through August and into September. The other parks pretty much on that same timetable as it looks like right now. So yes, we're very excited because our national parks, our beautiful national parks, are going to be open for business this year and ready to receive travelers like yourselves. Certainly. It's a great question, Deborah and Robert. Thank you. Okay, let me see. I got time for probably 1 or 2 more. I see a question out there in regards to food on board, again, from several people. Just to clarify, the meals, there's 2 ways to do it. You can dine in the dining car on board if you want. Social distancing is maintained, cleaning standards are maintained. Your car attendant absolutely can and will take your order and deliver the food to your private room. If you'd rather dine there, you can certainly do so on any overnight train, no problem. Okay, let me see if I can get a couple more really good questions. Oh, tough choices, folks. You're making it hard on me with some great questions. Let me see what I can do. Okay, so here's a really, really good one from Larry out there. So Larry asks about the National Parks of the Southwest trip. Is this the only ones that you do that feature Zion National Park? No, I'm very pleased to say it is not, Larry, the only option. That same tour that I showed you that did the 5 national parks in the Southwest with the overnight train journey on the Zephyr, and I mentioned that was a private sightseeing experience. in 2020 and 2021. That tour, that national park assignment, we offer a number of different combinations. And as I said earlier on, there's hundreds of different vacations for Amtrak Vacations on our website. That destination has several different ways you can combine it with the Grand Canyon and any number of other combinations in and about that region. So no, definitely not our only way to experience Zion. I have a question from Harriet in regards to the best time to visit Glacier National Park. So Harriet, this is a good question. When is the best time to go? Glacier is a very specific season. It essentially runs from the end of June right on through the middle of September every year. It's a very tight season because it's up in the mountains, and that's really when you can visit it unless you're into some serious hiking or that sort of thing. But for our vacations, for most sightseers, that's the season for Glacier. After that, the hotels are also closed down and such. Other destinations, though, it's worth mentioning seasonality for those as well. Some definitely have a seasonal quality to them. Places like Glacier, you can visit at certain times. Others almost have two different experiences. So we have, for example, customers who want to do Yellowstone with us who have done it. They've done that first time visit to Yellowstone, for example, but want to go back and see it a different way. And will travel with us on our winter journeys, which feature some very different types of sightseeing. And of course, the landscape is totally transformed. Best time to go can also be about a special occasion for you. So, if you have a anniversary or a memorable time coming up, that can be personal to you as far as best time. The other thing that comes up is things like weather, when is it a little bit quieter, or when is the best value. So there's a lot of different ways to define best time to go. For Glacier specifically, it's that one season where it's actually open. For others, it really depends on what you're looking for. And I think our team will do a great job with you, as they always do when you call in, of identifying what's most important to you and recommending a best time based on that. So folks, I apologize, I'm not going to be able to get to more questions today, but we are out of time. In fact, we're a little bit over time even. But I did want to say, first and foremost, thank you so much for taking the time, for dreaming, for being so excited to get out there and travel again, and for considering Amtrak Vacations as your next great trip. We certainly love to hear from you. Thank you for sharing what's inspired you. I do sincerely hope you learned a lot today. I hope I inspired you as well. So give us a call at 800-268-7252 to plan your trip, learn a little bit more, or visit us at amtrakvacations.com for some more ideas to see what's possible. And if you have a travel agent out there that you love to work with, we work with them too. Give them a call. They'll absolutely be able to help you and get in touch with us and help you plan your vacation. Folks, thank you so much. Have a wonderful day, and we look forward to seeing you out there traveling very soon.